She walked into the room, her heart pounding. As the words of contempt echoed, she stepped forward, determined to stop the cruelty. But before she could speak, a hand struck her face with shocking force, leaving her reeling in disbelief. The smirk on his face told her this was just the beginning of her nightmare. Alone and trapped, she realized she was in far deeper than she ever imagined. What she discovered next would turn her world upside down. Anna Fitzgerald had always believed in leading from the front, but nothing could have prepared her for what awaited. The moment she stepped into that room, her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. As she listened to the harsh, biting words echoing around her, she knew she had to act. She had to stop the cruelty before it went any further. Gathering every ounce of her courage, Anna stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the source of the venomous speech. She was determined to intervene, to bring the situation under control, but before she could even open her mouth to speak, a hand lashed out with shocking speed and force. The blow landed squarely on her face, leaving her momentarily stunned and struggling to process what had just happened. As the initial shock of the slap began to fade, Anna's eyes met those of her assailant. The smirk that curled at the edges of his lips told her everything she needed to know. This was just the beginning. The situation was far worse than she had anticipated, and the nightmare was only starting. Her stomach churned with a mix of fear and anger, but there was no time to dwell on those emotions now. Alone and trapped in a hostile environment, Anna quickly realized the depth of the situation she had walked into. The walls seemed to close in around her as she struggled to find a way out, her mind racing to devise a plan. But the realization hit her hard. She was in far deeper than she ever could have imagined. The discovery she would make next would not only challenge her, but also turn her entire world upside down, forcing her to confront the harsh realities she had overlooked for too long. Anna Fitzgerald had always known the weight of her name. Born into a family that built a vast business empire from the ground up, she was groomed from a young age to take over. Her father, a legend in the business world, had instilled in her the values that guided every decision she made: integrity, respect, and the importance of treating every employee with dignity. As a child, Anna watched her father navigate the complex world of business, absorbing lessons that would later define her leadership style. She learned that true power wasn't just about making tough decisions, but about doing so with empathy and an unwavering commitment to the people who helped build the empire. Taking over the family business wasn't just an inheritance. It was a responsibility she took seriously. Anna's vision was to maintain the company's reputation while ensuring that it remained a place where every employee felt valued. Her father's legacy was one of success, but also one of compassion, and she was determined to honor that in everything she did. Despite the immense pressure, Anna found solace in the fact that she was continuing the work her father started. The empire was more than just a collection of companies. It was a testament to her family's dedication and hard work. But as she would soon discover, not everyone within the walls of her company shared the same values, and this realization would challenge everything she believed in. Anna Fitzgerald arrived at the company's branch office for what was supposed to be a routine visit. As she stepped out of her car and into the building, a strange feeling of unease settled over her. Something was off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. The employees she encountered on her way to the executive suite were quieter than usual, their greetings more subdued, and their expressions a mix of discomfort and fear. As she walked through the hallway, Anna's sharp eyes caught subtle signs of tension, glances exchanged between employees that quickly turned away when she looked in their direction, whispered conversations that abruptly stopped as she approached. It wasn't just the usual stress of corporate life. There was something deeper, more insidious, lurking beneath the surface. When she reached the executive suite, she paused, taking in the atmosphere. The normally bustling office felt unnervingly still, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. Anna's instincts, honed over years of leading her company, told her that this was no ordinary day. She knew she had to investigate further, to uncover what was causing this palpable sense of dread among her employees. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Anna decided to start her investigation immediately. She would speak to key personnel, observe their behavior, and piece together the truth. Whatever was going on, She would not let it fester under her watch. This was her company, her legacy, and she would protect it at all costs. Anna Fitzgerald decided to take a drastic step to understand the underlying issues plaguing her company. She adopted a new identity, disguising herself as a novice employee just starting out in the company. Wearing a simple uniform, her once elegant appearance was now modest, blending in with the regular staff. The transformation was complete, and she felt the weight of her mission. It was time to see the company from the ground up, through the eyes of those she trusted to keep her business thriving. As Anna navigated through the office, now a stranger among her own employees, she began to notice the subtle signs of a toxic work environment. Conversations were whispered in corners, eyes darted nervously as she passed, and there was an air of distrust hanging over the workspace. What she had sensed from her executive suite was only the tip of the iceberg. The reality was much worse. During her first few days undercover, Anna encountered the harshness of the workplace culture. Supervisors were harsh, dismissive, and seemed to relish in their authority. Employees looked worn out, their energy drained by the relentless demands and lack of appreciation. Anna observed as one of her colleagues was unfairly reprimanded for a minor mistake, the supervisor's tone sharp and unyielding. The fear in the room was palpable, and Anna realized that this was not an isolated incident, but a pattern. Determined to dig deeper, Anna started engaging in conversations with her coworkers, carefully extracting information without raising suspicion. The more she learned, the clearer it became that this toxic environment was systemic. The very people she had put in charge to manage the company had allowed this culture to fester, and it was tearing the business apart from within. Anna Fitzgerald's first encounter with the harsh realities of her company came unexpectedly. She was walking through the office when she heard raised voices coming from a nearby room. Instinctively, she moved closer, her heart pounding as she peered inside. What she saw made her blood run cold. A manager was berating an employee, his face contorted with anger, while the employee stood trembling, unable to defend herself. Unable to stand by, Anna felt a surge of determination and stepped forward, her voice firm as she called out to the manager to stop. The room fell silent for a brief moment as all eyes turned to her, the tension thick in the air. But instead of de-escalating, the situation took a dark turn. The manager, his authority challenged, turned his fury toward Anna, accusing her of meddling where she didn't belong. Anna tried to reason with him, her voice calm but resolute, urging him to treat his employees with respect. However, her words only seemed to fuel his anger further. In a sudden, shocking move, he lunged at her, shoving her back with enough force to knock her off balance. The room erupted in chaos as Anna stumbled, catching herself just in time before falling. The employees in the room were too shocked to react immediately, frozen by the violence that had just unfolded. Anna, however, quickly regained her composure, her eyes burning with a newfound resolve. She had witnessed the toxic culture firsthand, and now she knew just how deep the problem ran. The incident left her more determined than ever to root out the corruption within her company, no matter the personal cost. After the intense confrontation, Anna knew she had to reassess her approach. The reality of the situation was far more dangerous than she had anticipated. She retreated to a quiet corner of the office, her mind racing as she tried to process what had just happened. The violence she had witnessed was a clear indication that something much darker was at play. As she took a deep breath, she realized she needed to strategize carefully. Anna sat down at her desk, pulling out a notebook to jot down her thoughts. The memory of the manager's rage and the fear in the employee's eyes replayed in her mind, each detail becoming sharper. This wasn't just about the toxic work culture. It was about power, control, and possibly something more sinister. She began to outline her next steps, knowing that one wrong move could make things worse, not just for her, but for everyone involved. Her resolve hardened as she contemplated the risks. As Anna looked out of the office window, the weight of her responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders. She understood that her actions could have far-reaching consequences, not only for the employees, but for the entire company. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. In that moment of reflection, she realized that exposing the truth would require more than just courage. It would require cunning and patience. She decided to take a step back, gather more information, and plan her next move with precision. Anna sat at her desk, reviewing the notes she had made earlier, but something didn't feel right. The more she delved into the details, the more she realized how interconnected the issues were. It was no longer just about toxic management. There were patterns, hints of something more deeply rooted and systematic. Her initial confidence began to wane as the complexity of the situation became apparent. This was bigger than she had anticipated, and it was slipping out of her control. As Anna tried to piece together the puzzle, she discovered discrepancies in the company's financial records. Small, seemingly insignificant errors that, when connected, painted a disturbing picture. There was a web of deceit, and the realization hit her hard. Someone had gone to great lengths to cover up these issues, indicating a scheme that reached far beyond just bad leadership. Her heart raced as she started to see the bigger picture, knowing that exposing this could have serious ramifications. Anna's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden phone call from a trusted colleague. The voice on the other end was tense, hinting at more troubling developments within the company. It was clear now, this was more than just an internal issue. She was up against something far more sinister and far-reaching. The first signs of a deeper conspiracy were emerging, and Anna knew she had to act quickly before things spiraled further out of control. Robert Mason had always prided himself on being observant, and lately, something about the new employee had caught his attention. She was too quiet, too meticulous, almost as if she were watching, analyzing every move. The realization that she might be more than she appeared to be caused a flicker of suspicion to grow in his mind. He began to monitor her closely, noting her interactions, her questions. Everything seemed to carry a hidden intent. This was no ordinary employee, and Robert's instincts told him to be wary. As Robert's suspicions deepened, so did the tension in the office. Anna, aware that someone was watching her, felt the pressure mount. She could sense eyes on her, feel the weight of every decision scrutinized. The once familiar environment now seemed hostile, filled with unseen threats. Her every move was calculated, knowing that one misstep could expose her. But the real challenge was maintaining her composure under the growing suspicion that loomed over her. The subtle dance of power and control between Anna and Robert escalated. Robert, now almost certain that Anna was hiding something, intensified his surveillance. Meanwhile, Anna, fully aware of Robert's eyes on her, knew that the stakes were higher than ever. She had to be careful, yet bold, to continue her mission without drawing further suspicion. The tension between them was palpable, each aware of the other's presence, but neither willing to make the first move. Elena Roberts had been quietly observing the situation unfold, and though she usually kept to herself, she couldn't ignore the signs that Anna Fitzgerald was in trouble. Despite her own difficulties, Elena approached Anna, offering her assistance. At first, Anna was hesitant. Why would a pregnant, seemingly unassuming employee want to help her? But as Elena explained the knowledge she had about certain internal workings, it became clear that this unexpected alliance could be the key to uncovering the deeper layers of the conspiracy. The two women quickly devised a new strategy, combining Anna's experience and authority with Elena's insider information. It seemed promising at first, but the more they discussed it, the more apparent it became that this plan alone might not be enough. The opposition they faced was powerful and resourceful, and each step forward felt like walking into a trap. Elena's contributions were invaluable, but the complexity of the situation was beyond what they had initially anticipated. As they put their plan into action, both women could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. Elena, despite her determination, was visibly strained by the effort and her pregnancy, while Anna struggled to keep her confidence intact amidst the growing challenges. They knew this was only the beginning of a much larger battle, and although their alliance was strong, the road ahead was fraught with peril. Anna Fitzgerald and Elena Roberts worked late into the night, poring over documents and devising a meticulous plan to expose Robert Mason. Anna knew they had to act swiftly and decisively, using the information Elena had gathered. The plan involved gathering incriminating evidence and presenting it in a way that would leave no doubt about Robert's misconduct. Elena's insight into the company's internal workings was crucial, and together, they crafted a strategy that they believed could outsmart even someone as cunning as Robert. As the plan unfolded, The first step was to gain access to restricted files. Elena, using her knowledge as a longtime employee, managed to bypass security measures, though the effort visibly strained her. Anna, while impressed by Elena's resourcefulness, couldn't shake the feeling of growing tension. Every move they made was calculated, but it became increasingly clear that they were up against a formidable adversary. Small setbacks began to emerge, unexpected obstacles that made them realize how tightly Robert had secured his position of power. As the day of their planned confrontation approached, Anna noticed more signs of the plan's potential unraveling. A key piece of evidence had mysteriously disappeared, and whispers around the office hinted that Robert might already be aware of their intentions. Despite these warning signs, Anna and Elena pressed on, knowing that the stakes were too high to back down now. But beneath their determination, doubt began to creep in, casting a shadow over their once solid plan. Anna Fitzgerald had never felt more confident in her strategy, but the sense of control began to slip away when a startling discovery was made. Elena, while going through additional security protocols, uncovered something alarming. The security team, which Anna had trusted implicitly, was also deeply involved with Robert Mason. This revelation sent a shockwave through Anna, shaking her belief that she could still manage the situation. The very people she had counted on for protection were now potential threats, complicit in the schemes that sought to undermine her authority. The realization that the security team was compromised forced Anna to reassess everything she thought she knew about her environment. She felt the weight of isolation as the walls around her seemed to close in, and she realized that she was surrounded by those who were loyal to Robert, not her. Elena's anxious expression as she shared this information only heightened Anna's sense of impending danger. Every step they had taken to secure evidence now felt like a dangerous misstep, as the reality of their vulnerability became clear. Anna knew she had to act quickly but carefully. She couldn't afford to make any more mistakes, knowing that Robert's influence extended further than she had ever imagined. The hostile environment that she was now fully aware of forced her to consider her next moves with greater caution. Trust was a luxury she could no longer afford, and the knowledge that her every move might be watched left her feeling exposed and vulnerable. The sense of control she once had was slipping through her fingers, and the path ahead seemed increasingly treacherous. Anna, with her determined spirit, decided it was time to confront Robert Mason directly. The tension between them had reached a boiling point, and she believed she had gathered enough evidence to challenge him. However, as she stood before him, something in his demeanor threw her off balance. Robert, with a subtle, knowing smile, revealed that he was aware of her every move. The confidence she had walked in with began to waver as Robert systematically dismantled her arguments, leaving her defenseless. The confrontation that Anna had hoped would expose Robert instead ended in a crushing defeat. As Robert's words cut through her defenses, Anna felt the walls closing in. It became apparent that Robert had prepared for this moment far better than she had anticipated. His network of influence was more extensive than she had imagined, and as he leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers, Anna realized she had severely underestimated him. The room, once a place where she felt control, now felt like a trap. Anna's heart raced as she tried to maintain her composure, but the realization that her disguise was on the brink of being exposed left her paralyzed with fear. The situation escalated when Robert, noticing her hesitation, pressed further, pushing Anna into a corner, both figuratively and literally. The once powerful CEO now felt her control slipping away entirely. In a moment of desperation, Anna attempted to leave the room, but Robert's presence blocked her path, leaving her with no escape. The feeling of being encircled, with her every exit blocked, drove home the crushing reality that her plans had failed. The defeat was not just professional but deeply personal, shaking Anna to her core as she realized how close she was to losing everything she had fought for. Anna left Robert's office feeling a cold knot of fear tightening in her chest. The confrontation had stripped away her confidence, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. As she walked down the corridor, her mind raced, replaying the crushing defeat she had just endured. Every step felt heavier than the last, the weight of her impending failure pressing down on her. The options she once thought were within reach now seemed distant and impossible. Her carefully constructed plans were unraveling, and the reality of her situation was becoming painfully clear. Alone in her private office, Anna collapsed into her chair, her mind spiraling into despair. The walls that once represented her strength now seemed to close in, suffocating her with the stark realization of her vulnerability. She stared blankly at the documents scattered on her desk, the numbers and words blurring together as her thoughts drifted to the inevitable downfall that seemed closer with every passing moment. Her reflection in the window revealed a woman who had once been powerful, now reduced to a mere shadow of her former self, struggling to keep her head above water. As night fell, Anna's thoughts turned inward, reflecting on the decisions that had led her to this precipice. The fear of failure gnawed at her, a relentless reminder of how close she was to losing everything. Her once steady hands now trembled as she realized the enormity of what she was up against. The people she had trusted, the plans she had made, all felt like fragile threads that could snap at any moment. The abyss she had fought so hard to avoid now loomed larger than ever, threatening to swallow her whole. As Anna sifted through the files on her desk, something caught her eye, an overlooked document buried beneath a stack of papers. It was a report, one she had dismissed earlier, thinking it irrelevant. But now, with her mind sharper in the wake of her recent setbacks, she noticed a detail that had escaped her before. A pattern emerged, one that connected seemingly unrelated events in a way that made perfect sense. This revelation wasn't just a small piece of the puzzle. It was the key that could turn the tide. Her heart raced as she realized the implications. This evidence had the potential to expose the truth she had been desperately seeking, but it also brought new complications, ones she hadn't anticipated. With renewed determination, Anna followed the lead provided by the document. Her investigation took her deeper into the corporate maze, uncovering hidden connections between her adversaries. Each discovery fueled her resolve, but it also made the situation increasingly complex. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became that the truth was far more tangled than she had imagined. What she had found was not just a simple oversight, but a deliberate attempt to obscure reality, making her task even more daunting. Despite the breakthrough, Anna felt the weight of the challenges ahead. The revelation gave her a new perspective, but it didn't simplify her mission. In fact, it made everything more complicated. She knew that while this evidence could be her saving grace, it could also lead her into greater danger. The stakes were higher than ever, and every step forward brought her closer to both the truth and the peril that accompanied it. Armed with the newfound evidence, Anna knew this was her last chance. She meticulously crafted a new strategy, integrating the critical details she had uncovered. It was a bold plan, but it was the only one that offered any hope. As she presented her strategy to her team, their reactions were mixed. Some saw the brilliance in her approach, but others, worn down by previous failures, were skeptical. Doubt flickered in their eyes, and Anna felt the weight of their mistrust pressing down on her. Still, she pushed forward, knowing that this was their only option. As the plan was set into motion, Anna encountered intense resistance from those who stood to lose the most if her strategy succeeded. Every step forward seemed to be met with another obstacle, another challenge designed to break her resolve. She found herself questioning whether she had made the right choice, whether this plan would truly work. The pressure was immense, and for a moment, she almost considered giving up. But the memory of what was at stake kept her moving, kept her fighting against the tide of opposition. The closer Anna came to executing her final move, the more she felt the strain on her and her team. They were on the brink, and she could see the cracks beginning to form. Their faith in her leadership wavered, and she struggled to keep their morale from crumbling entirely. The situation was precarious. One misstep, and everything would fall apart. But despite the odds, Anna held on to the last shred of hope, determined to see this through to the end, no matter the cost. As the days went by, the initial enthusiasm for Anna's plan began to wane. The setbacks they encountered chipped away at the confidence her team had in her leadership. Whispers of doubt spread through the corridors, and Anna could feel the growing distance between her and her closest allies. Once a symbol of unshakable strength, she now faced questioning glances and hesitant responses from those who used to follow her lead without question. The isolation started to take its toll on her, as she found herself standing alone in decisions that once were made as a team. The emotional strain became unbearable as conflicts within the team erupted. Anna, who had always prided herself on maintaining composure, struggled to keep her emotions in check. She had to defend her decisions not only against external forces, but now also against her own colleagues. The arguments became more frequent, and the sense of camaraderie that once held them together was now fraying at the edges. Anna's once clear vision was now clouded by the hurtful words and accusations that flew around the room, leaving her feeling more isolated than ever before. Each night, as Anna sat in her office, the silence felt heavier. The desk that once held the plans for success now seemed like a barrier separating her from everyone else. The weight of her responsibilities pressed down on her, and she began to question her own judgment. The loneliness was overwhelming, and she realized that the fight she was now facing wasn't just against external adversaries, but against the crumbling trust within her own ranks. Yet, despite the overwhelming sense of isolation, Anna knew she had to push forward, even if it meant doing so alone. As Anna sat alone in her office, the weight of the recent events pressed heavily on her mind. The once clear path to success now seemed obscured by a fog of doubt. She knew she needed to make a decisive move, but each option she considered felt riddled with potential pitfalls. The isolation she felt was deepening, and for the first time, she questioned whether she was truly equipped to handle the situation. Her thoughts wandered back to the choices she had made along the way, wondering if she could have done something differently to avoid the current crisis. The silence of the room was interrupted only by the faint hum of the computer as she reviewed old documents and emails, searching for anything she might have missed. It was during this meticulous review that a small detail began to stand out, a seemingly insignificant piece of information that she had overlooked in the chaos. The realization hit her slowly, the pieces starting to fit together in her mind. However, despite this glimmer of hope, the doubt lingered. Could this be the key to turning everything around, or was she grasping at straws? Anna spent the rest of the night pondering this new discovery, replaying conversations and events in her mind. The more she thought about it, the more this small clue began to take on greater significance. Yet, the fear of making another mistake kept her from acting immediately. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the window, she knew she had to make a decision. The pressure was immense, but Anna was determined to see it through, even if the path ahead was uncertain. Anna's mind raced as she pieced together the seemingly unconnected events that had led her to this moment. The subtle clues scattered throughout the past weeks began to form a clearer picture in her mind. A forgotten conversation, a passing comment, and the overlooked details in a contract. All these fragments started aligning, revealing a pattern she had previously missed. The realization that there was indeed a way out of this crisis slowly dawned on her. However, the solution was far from straightforward and carried significant risks. With this newfound insight, Anna revisited the critical moments of the past, searching for confirmation that her hunch was correct. The more she analyzed, the more the pieces fit together. Yet, the margin for error was terrifyingly thin. She knew that one wrong move could bring everything crashing down. The weight of this understanding bore down on her, but for the first time in days, she felt a spark of hope, no matter how faint. As she continued to unravel the web of clues, Anna knew she was on the verge of something significant. The evidence was there, but pulling it all together in a way that would make a difference was the real challenge. The clock was ticking, and every moment counted. She was acutely aware that this might be her last chance to save everything she had worked for. The path was narrow, and the stakes were higher than ever, but she was ready to take the risk. Anna's heart pounded as she watched her carefully laid plans start to unravel. A crucial deal that she had counted on fell apart at the last minute, leaving her company vulnerable and exposed. Every attempt to salvage the situation seemed to backfire, and each phone call brought more bad news. The weight of failure bore down on her, and for the first time, the thought that she might lose everything crossed her mind. In the midst of the chaos, Anna received word that one of her top executives, someone she had trusted implicitly, had betrayed her. This revelation was a devastating blow, one that shook her confidence to the core. As she processed the betrayal, the walls seemed to close in around her. It felt as though every step she took only led her deeper into a pit from which there was no escape. The pressure was relentless, and her resolve began to waver. With everything crumbling around her, Anna found herself at her breaking point. The enormity of the situation became too much to bear, and a sense of hopelessness threatened to overwhelm her. She stared at the city skyline, the twinkling lights now a distant reminder of what she had once controlled. In that moment of despair, she realized that she was out of options. The situation had reached a tipping point, and the future looked bleak. Yet, deep down, a tiny ember of determination still flickered, refusing to be extinguished. Anna sat in her office, the pressure mounting as she reviewed the evidence she had gathered over the past weeks. Every piece of information seemed disjointed, yet she knew there was a connection, a hidden thread that tied everything together. Her mind raced as she recalled the subtle hints and overlooked details, realizing that the answer had been in front of her all along. With renewed determination, she began to piece together the puzzle, her confidence slowly returning as the larger picture became clear. The plan she had been forming in the back of her mind now took shape, and it was time to act. The final confrontation was inevitable. Anna called a meeting with her executive team, including Robert Mason, the man she now knew had been working against her. She laid out her findings, exposing the intricate web of deceit that had nearly brought her company to ruin. Robert's confident smirk faded as she revealed the evidence of his betrayal, carefully weaving in every subtle clue she had uncovered. The room was tense, the other executives watching in shock as Anna systematically dismantled the lies that had threatened to destroy her legacy. With the truth fully exposed, Anna took control of the situation. She presented a bold new plan that not only saved the company but positioned it for greater success than ever before. Her strategic brilliance and unwavering resolve had turned the tide, and the very people who had doubted her were now her greatest supporters. As she stood before her team, the weight of the past weeks lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a sense of triumph. Anna had not only survived the crisis but emerged stronger, having outmaneuvered her enemies and secured her place as a formidable leader. In the aftermath of the tumultuous events, Anna Fitzgerald stood as the unwavering pillar of the company she had fought so hard to protect. The boardroom, once a battlefield of deceit and betrayal, now echoed with the determination of a leader who had not only survived but thrived against overwhelming odds. With Robert Mason's downfall complete, she moved swiftly to implement the much-needed reforms that would restore integrity to her organization. Her strategic brilliance and deep understanding of the challenges her company faced became the driving force behind a series of transformative changes. The once toxic environment began to heal, and a new culture of transparency and accountability took root. As Anna led the charge in rebuilding her company, the experience left an indelible mark on her. She was no longer just a CEO. She had evolved into a leader with a renewed sense of purpose and an even stronger resolve. The trials she had faced had reshaped her outlook on both life and business, teaching her invaluable lessons about trust, loyalty, and the true cost of power. Her personal growth was mirrored in the company's resurgence as it began to flourish under her guidance, embracing innovation and ethical practices that set a new industry standard. Anna's story became an inspiration, not just within her company, but across the business world. Years later, the fruits of Anna's labor were evident. The company, once teetering on the brink of collapse, had become a beacon of success and innovation. The new generation of leaders, inspired by Anna's journey, carried forward her legacy with the same passion and integrity she had instilled in them. As for Anna, she found peace in knowing that her struggles had not been in vain. Her life, once consumed by corporate warfare, now enjoyed a balance she had long sought. The epilogue of her story revealed a woman who had not only conquered her demons but had also paved the way for a brighter, more ethical future for her company and herself.
This story touched me deeply, reminding us all of the quiet strength within, waiting to rise when we most need it. How did you come across this story? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. And if you're interested in more unforgettable cases, click on the video on your screen. See you there.